The Great Wall of China is a series of fortifications that were built across the historical northern borders of ancient Chinese states and imperial China as protection against various nomadic groups from the Eurasian steppe. Several walls were built from as early as the 7th century BC, with selective stretches later joined together by Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. Little of the Qin Wall remains. Later on, many successive dynasties built and maintained multiple stretches of border walls. The most well-known sections of the wall were built by the Ming Dynasty. Apart from defense, other purposes of the Great Wall have included border controls, allowing the imposition of duties on goods transported along the Silk Road, regulation or encouragement of trade, and the control of immigration and emigration. Furthermore, the defensive characteristics of the Great Wall were enhanced by the construction of watchtowers, troop barracks, garrison stations, signaling capabilities through the means of smoke or fire, and the fact that the path of the Great Wall also served as a transportation corridor. The frontier walls built by different dynasties have multiple courses. Collectively, they stretch from Liaodong in the east to Lop Lake in the west, from the present-day Sino-Russian border in the north to Dao River, Taohe, in the south, along an arc that roughly delineates the edge of the Mongolian steppe, spanning over 20,000 kilometers in total. Today, the defensive system of the Great Wall is generally recognized as one of the most impressive architectural feats in history. The Chinese were already familiar with the techniques of wall building by the time of the Spring and Autumn period between the 8th and 5th centuries BC. During this time and the subsequent Warring States period, the states of Qin, Wei, Zhao, Qi, Han, Yan, and Zhongshan all constructed extensive fortifications to defend their own borders. Built to withstand the attack of small arms such as swords and spears, these walls were made mostly of stone or by stamping earth and gravel between board frames. The Great Wall of the Han is the longest of all walls, from Mamitu near Yumenguan to Liaodong. King Zheng of Qin conquered the last of his opponents and unified China as the first emperor of the Qin Dynasty in 221 BC. Intending to impose centralized rule and prevent the resurgence of feudal lords, he ordered the destruction of the sections of the walls that divided his empire among the former states. To position the empire against the Xiongnu people from the north, however, he ordered the building of new walls to connect the remaining fortifications along the empire's northern frontier. And quat, build and move on, and quat was a central guiding principle in constructing the wall, implying that the Chinese were not erecting a permanently fixed border. Transporting the large quantity of materials required for construction was difficult, so builders always tried to use local resources. Stones from the mountains were used over mountain ranges, while rammed earth was used for construction in the plains. There are no surviving historical records indicating the exact length and course of the Qin walls. Most of the ancient walls have eroded away over the centuries, and very few sections remain. Today, the human cost of the construction is unknown, but it has been estimated by some authors that hundreds of thousands workers died building the Qin Wall. Later, the Han, the northern dynasties, and the Sui all repaired, rebuilt, or expanded sections of the Great Wall at great cost to defend themselves against northern invaders. The Tang and Song dynasties did not undertake any significant effort in the region. Non-Han dynasties also built their border walls. The Xianbei ruled northern Wei, the Khitan ruled Liao, Jurchen Jin and the Tangut established western Xia, who ruled vast territories over northern China throughout centuries. All constructed defensive walls, but Those were located much to the north of the other Great Walls as we know it, within China's province of Inner Mongolia and in Mongolia itself. The Great Wall concept was revived again under the Ming in the 14th century, and following the Ming army's defeat by the Oirats in the Battle of Tumu. The Ming had failed to gain a clear upper hand over the Mongolian tribes after successive battles, and the long-drawn conflict was taking a toll on the empire. The Ming adopted a new strategy to keep the nomadic tribes out by constructing walls along the northern border of China. Acknowledging the Mongol control established in the Ordos Desert, the wall followed the desert's southern edge instead of incorporating the bend of the Yellow River. Unlike the earlier fortifications, the Ming construction was stronger and more elaborate due to the use of bricks and stone instead of rammed earth. Up to 25,000 watchtowers are estimated to have been constructed on the wall. As Mongol raids continued periodically over the years, the Ming devoted considerable resources to repair and reinforce the walls. Sections near the Ming capital of Beijing were especially strong. Qi Jiguang between 1567 and 1570 also repaired and reinforced the wall, faced sections of the ram earth wall with bricks and constructed 1,200 watchtowers from Shanhaiguan Pass to Changping to warn of approaching Mongol raiders. During the 1440s to 1460s, the Ming also built a so-called Anquat Liaodong Wall Anquat, similar in function to the Great Wall, whose extension, in a sense, it was, but more basic in construction. The Liaodong Wall enclosed the agricultural heartland of the Liaodong province, protecting it against potential incursions by Yurched Mongol Oryongan from the northwest and the Jianzhou Jurchens from the north. While stones and tiles were used in some parts of the Liaodong Wall, most of it was in fact simply an earth dike with moats on both sides. Towards the end of the Ming, the Great Wall helped defend the empire against the Manchu invasions that began around 1600. Even after the loss of all of Liaodong, the Ming army held the heavily fortified Shanhai Pass, preventing the Manchus from conquering the Chinese heartland. The Manchus were finally able to cross the Great Wall in 1644, after Beijing had already fallen to Li Zicheng's rebels. Before this time, the Manchus had crossed the Great Wall multiple times to raid, but this time it was for conquest. The gates at Shanhai Pass were opened on May 25 by the commanding Ming general, Wu Sangui, who formed an alliance with the Manchus, hoping to use the Manchus to expel the rebels from Beijing. The Manchus quickly seized Beijing, and eventually defeated both the rebel-founded Qin Dynasty and the remaining Ming resistance, establishing the Qing Dynasty rule over all of China. Under Qing rule, China's borders extended beyond the walls, and Mongolia was annexed into the empire, so constructions on the Great Wall were discontinued. On the other hand, the so-called Willow Palisade, following a line similar to that of the Ming Liaodong Wall, was constructed by the Qing rulers in Manchuria. Its purpose, however, was not defense but rather to prevent Han Chinese migration into Manchuria before the use of bricks. The Great Wall was mainly built from rammed earth, stones, and wood. During the Ming, however, bricks were heavily used in many areas of the wall, as were materials such as tiles, lime, and stone. The size and weight of the bricks made them easier to work with than earth and stone, so construction quickened. Additionally, bricks could bear more weight and endure better than rammed earth. Stone can hold under its own weight better than brick, but is more difficult to use. Consequently, stones cut in rectangular shapes were used for the foundation, inner and outer brims, and gateways of the wall. Battlements line the uppermost portion of the vast majority of the wall, with defensive gaps. A little over 30 centimeters, 12 in tall, and about 23 centimeters, 9.1 in wide. From the parapets, guards could survey the surrounding land. Communication between the army units along the length of the Great Wall, including the ability to call reinforcements and warn garrisons of enemy movements, was of high importance. Signal towers were built upon hilltops or other high points along the wall for their visibility. Wooden gates could be used as a trap against those going through. Barracks, stables, and armories were built near the wall's inner surface, while portions north of Beijing and near tourist centers have been preserved and even extensively renovated. In many other locations, the wall is in disrepair. The wall sometimes provided a source of stones to build houses and roads. 60 sections of the wall are also prone to graffiti and vandalism, while inscribed bricks were pilfered and sold on the market for up to 50 renminbi. Parts have been destroyed to make way for construction or mining. A 2012 report by the National Cultural Heritage Administration states that 22% of the Ming Great Wall has disappeared, while 1,961 kilometers, 1,219 miles, of wall have vanished. More than 60 kilometers, 37 miles, of the wall in Gansu province may disappear in the next 20 years due to erosion from sandstorms. In some places, the height of the wall has been reduced from more than 5 meters, 16 feet 5 in, to less than 2 meters, 6 feet 7 in. Various square lookout towers that characterize the most famous images of the wall have disappeared. Many western sections of the wall are constructed from mud, rather than brick and stone, and thus are more susceptible to erosion. 63. In 2014, a portion of the wall near the border of Liaoning and Hebei province was repaired with concrete. The work has been much criticized. The notion that the wall can be seen from the Moon, with an average orbital radius of 385,000 kilometers, 239,000 miles, is a well-known but untrue myth. One of the earliest known references to the myth that the Great Wall can be seen from the Moon appears in a letter written in 1754 by the English antiquary William Stukeley. Wrote that, and quote, "This mighty wall, Hadrian's Wall, of 80 miles, 130 kilometers, in length is only exceeded by the Chinese Wall, which makes a considerable figure upon the terrestrial globe, and may be discerned at the Moon." The claim was also mentioned by Henry Norman in 1895, where he states, end quote, "Besides its age, it enjoys the reputation of being the only work of human hands on the globe visible from the Moon." The issue of canals on Mars was prominent in the late 19th century and may have led to the belief that long, thin objects were visible from space. The claim that the Great Wall is visible from the Moon also appears in 1932's Ripley's Believe It or Not strip. 68. The claim that the Great Wall is visible from the Moon has been debunked many times. The apparent width of the Great Wall from the Moon would be the same as that of a human hair, viewed from 3 kilometers, 2 miles, away, but is still ingrained in popular culture.